Hello, hey, and thanks for joining me on this presentation. I have a pretty intense title here about how you can stop mass shootings, but I do believe it's possible. After the tragedy in Las Vegas, where we have Steve Paddock killing up to 59 people recently in a terrible, terrible mass shootings, there's a lot of discussion about policy, about gun control issues, and about what could be done nationally or at the state level to prevent this. Let's putting aside this conversation for a while. Let's talk about what everyday people can do, what you can do to help prevent these incidents, because these individuals know someone else. They are in a community. They don't happen in a bubble. And it could very well be that there's a shooting somewhere way down the line 2 years from now, 5 years from now, the things that you could do now that can prevent that incident from occurring. Now, at one point, I'm going to be talking a lot about his motives and what occurred there. And this is still very new in the investigation. And so I'll be speculating a lot about his motives and what happened there. But because I've studied these incidents for many years and I've looked at thousands of cases, we do see some trends. Number one, we know that this was planned. So in terms of stockpiling the weapons, in terms of sending his girlfriend off to the Philippines, that this event was not just a spontaneous thing, but it was thought about. And then with that, what were the clues? What were the red flags that observers can see in order to prevent this by reporting to authorities? One common concept within mass shootings is this issue of leakage. And leakage is when people talk about or post or somehow indicate their intentions to commit violence. So far, it doesn't look like there's anything that's been revealed. But the point is, there might have been something that's coming out, or there might have been things that it never will be revealed. But the point is, this was planned. We could see how people are stockpiling weapons, suicidal ideation, because often these things end up in suicide. So there's closure, sending people away, saying goodbye, giving away things. These are all indications of something bad that might happen, and also regarding suicide as well, which is actually a bigger issue, as I'll discuss. So with that, when there's any indication, any possible of a threat, if you're aware of a plan, people making statements, stockpiling weapons, things like that, it needs to be reported, obviously to law enforcement. But if you're in a school setting, then there's a school administration. If you're in the workplace, then there's their employer. There are avenues and processes to do a threat assessment, to determine the risk, and have an intervention put into place. Second of all, I believe that he experienced despair. Now, that is speculation. It's kind of odd that you might be thinking that he's in a desperate situation because he was apparently well off. He made some good investments in real estate. He was able to retire and just live his life, going to casino, gambling his life away. With all that money, I still believe that he might have had a level of despair and anxiety. That was also, it's been recently revealed that he was on some anxiety medications as well, some brand of Valium. But the point is that many of these shooters experience despair. They're at the end of their rope. In many other cases, we're seeing divorce, bankruptcy, foreclosures, a loss of relationships, just getting fired. They're in a hard place. These are very desperate acts. And therefore, we can see practical support, lending money, being there, giving them a place to stay, helping them get to the resources and social services that might be able to help them get back on their feet. Now, this individual did not need to get back on his feet, but one of the points is I do believe he experienced a lot of despair. It might sound nice, you can live in casinos and just gamble your life away and spend tens of thousands of dollars on a single night gambling. Now, that might sound like a nice life, but actually that sounds pretty horrible to me. With all that money, think about what he could have been doing that might have given him a sense of self-worth, giving to a cause, supporting an issue. That might find some value in him. I am quite certain that this individual felt like a POS, and then it led out to committing this terrible act. What we can do is be there as that friend, to be a listening ear, to support this person, to show them ways that they can live their lives more fully and with more rewards by giving to others, by being of service to others. Now, the third part I want to mention, many of you might disagree with, but I believe that he felt justified. In fact, I'm positive about this. There's been no note, no manifesto or anything about showing why he did this. But please understand, I don't think he did this because he enjoyed committing evil. Don't get me wrong, this was an evil act, but in their mind, in many of these shooters, they commit these acts because they believe what they're doing is right. If we look at Anders Breivik, who killed all those children in Norway, if we look at even Dylan Roof, who went into a church and killed those African Americans who were just worshiping God in their own way. These are terrible things, but they believe what they're doing is the right thing, that it's to help humanity. Meet them at that point. Of course it's delusional. Of course it's wrong, their reasoning and their belief system. But if you can understand that they believe what they're doing is right, meet them there and then engage with them, not necessarily confronting them, but engaging with them. Is this the right thing? Is what you're concerned about, the invasions or racism or sexism or whatever the issues are, is this correct? And if we can engage with them, talk with them, and then have dialogue over the years, many people engaging with this person openly, genuine conversations, it can maybe change their point of view. They believe what they're doing is right. So acknowledge that. Now show them what they're thinking is wrong, and what their solutions certainly are wrong. But we can engage them at a certain point early on. I'm not saying that these steps are all perfect and they'll always work, but it's a step moving forward. And it's also a combination of multiple people coming forward and doing this through the years. Like I said, years from now, there's going to be a shooting in 2020, 2022. What could be done now with the people in your lives, the people expressing despair? And one thing I'll say also about justice, there's a lot of political rhetoric going on, punch a Nazi, all these items about looking, and I'm not taking a stand either side, but there is this hatred, this animosity, this desperation, this real fear in people's lives. Let's objectively look at that and engage them. Is it real? And then what is the best approach to handle it? The final thing I want to say about this mass shooting is I want to emphasize, I study this. I read about this. I've looked at so many studies and just have a database of thousands of cases. Even with that, I realize it's not a common occurrence. Please understand that I've heard of people saying, I'm not going to go to concerts anymore or go to public venues. And then are you going to diminish your life because of this? Please note, in terms of violence, in terms of intentional injury, by far, hands down, a much bigger threat is crime related to robbery, carjackings, and there's things that could be done there to protect yourselves and to change that in our community. Another very big issue that's not being discussed is suicide. That by far is a much, much bigger killer. More people are dying from suicide than mass shootings by far. And there's things that we could do to help our loved ones or people that we barely even know when we recognize their concern to step forward. Folks, bottom line, the one thing that we could really do to stop this thing is love, showing care, empathy, being aware, not just thinking about what your needs are or being mad about something you saw on Facebook, but what can we do for the people in our lives to step forward and help them not make such a terrible decision. Thank you. I hope you all stay safe out there.